Hey everyone, before we get started, I just want to say thank you for all the comments. I've actually had some people say something about the background noise, so hopefully I can get that fixed within the next week or so. So just please be patient with me and thank you for your comments. Today's story is the one that I was talking about earlier, a couple of weeks ago, about a sad story, but this sad story actually turns victorious, so I want to share that with you. Today, the reason why I want to share this, have you ever looked back on something in history and say, wonder how that happened? Well, I want to make this video for my children and my grandchildren. Some of the feelings that I had on this day, actually it will be tomorrow, it will be 10 years ago tomorrow, and it actually changed me. So we all have those one days when we had that one day that changed you. And whether it be something tragic in your life, something happy, but this was actually something sad that has changed me as a person, but I think the Lord has used it hopefully to make me a better person. I'm going to try not to cry. I won't promise that this makes the 5th take on this video because I've been just crying so hard, so I'm going to try not to cry. My kids at the time were 13, 16, and 17, and here's a picture of them. Look how pretty they are. Yeah, those are my blessings from the Lord. They weren't young, they were in their teens, and so they knew a lot of things that were going on as far as just like how it evolved from that day. We had moved back from Memphis and we were living here, and we had been here about 5 years. The kids had been settled in school. Actually, my oldest daughter just graduated from high school, and then we had a church home. We had friends at that church. There was about 4 couples of us that were just really, really close. We had just taken a trip for our 25th wedding anniversary with 2 couples that were our friends, and just got back home 10 days prior to this day. It was June the 10th, 2009. I had gotten up to get ready for the day. I was going to stay at the hospital with my mom, and I had already showered and everything. My husband had gotten up and he was in the shower. And one of the things is his phone just continued to ring, and I was like, what is going on with his phone? So finally I go over and pick it up, and it was one of our friends, and she had been repeatedly calling. Her husband was the associate pastor of our church. He was at a church camp for the younger children that week, and I was like, okay, I wonder if something's happened at church camp and he needs our help or something, and she's calling on his behalf. So I took the phone in the bathroom and I told my husband, I said, hey, this person's calling, and I said, do you want me to call her back? And he said, no. He said, I'll take care of it in a little bit. I said, okay. So I go out in the living room, kitchen area. The kids were out there, and I was like, I'm going to go see Grandma, be with her most of the day. And I said, your dad's going to be here with you. And they said, okay. And so when he came out, he said, I'm going to take the phone call outside since the kids are here. The TV was blaring and all that kind of stuff. And so he was outside talking, just kept talking. And I'm like, what is he doing? And I didn't think much about it. Finally, I said, I've got to go to the hospital. So I just left and I waved at him, and he waved back, and I went to the hospital. I was at my mom's hospital room for about an hour. He came up there, my husband did, and he was at the door, and he was waving me towards the door. And when I get to the door, he said, I need to talk to you. It's really important. He said, can you come out here? And I was like, right now? And he said, yeah. He said, I need you to come out here. I said, okay. So I told Mom, I said, I'll be back in a little bit. And we started walking out. I said, do we need to leave the hospital? And he said, yeah. And I was like, this is strange. So he holds the elevator door open for me. We get out to the car. He opens the car door for me, very kind. And so we drive to the city park. He pulls up to a parking place in the city park, and we're looking out over the river, and all of a sudden he starts to cry. And I'm like, why is he crying? And he said, I've got something I need to tell you. And I said, okay. And he said, I need to tell you before it comes out. I'm like, okay. And he said, I've been having an affair. Well, I thought he was joking, and I sort of just punched him in the arm, and I said, now quit kidding, now tell me what's going on. And he said, no, really. He says, I've been having an affair. And at that instant, It was just like a person that I had known became a complete stranger to me. Someone I had trusted implicitly. I instantly lost trust in him. Now, I wasn't sad at that point. I was mad. And so one of the things I did is I took my fist and I started beating on the dash because I was so mad. And I mean, I busted that dash into bits. It was one of those times in your life where you have more strength than you even think that you have. And I just busted that dash all to bits. And I said, you need to take me home right now. And I said, we're going to tell the children. And I said, no, you're going to tell the children. And he said, oh no. He said, I can't tell them. I said, oh yes, you can. I said, you have done this. I said, you're going to tell them. So I said, let's go home. And so we start driving home. And one of the first things I thought to do, and it was weird, but I thought to call my brother. Because he had been through the same thing just a few months prior. And all of a sudden, my heart was heavy, not just for me, but for my brother, because I felt his pain. And it was like, oh my gosh, now I know how he felt. Sometimes God puts us through things to be more compassionate towards other people. And so all of a sudden, I knew how he felt. So we drove home. I still wasn't crying. We get to the house, and I gathered the children up. I'm still not crying. And we set them down at the bar in the kitchen, and my husband started crying. And when he started crying, my children started crying, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he hasn't even told them. But they see the heartbreak of their dad for something they don't even know yet, and they're heartbroken. So he tells them, he says, I just want you guys to know that I've been having an affair. And then he tells them the person. Now, what had happened that morning is she was calling because I guess something had come out, and I'm not going to tell not their side of the story. This is strictly my side of the story. So I don't know what came out, what happened. I did find out later, but I'm not going to even tell that side. And that's why she was calling in the morning, was she wanted to talk to him because her husband had found out. And so, and I didn't even think that. What I think makes me madder on when I was looking back was that I had compassion for them. And for her, because I thought, oh my gosh, what if something's gone wrong with my friend? So anyway, he told my children started crying. And he was letting them cry, and I started crying at that point because my kids were heartbroken. He comes back in the bedroom, starts packing a bag, and he comes out to the door. He's standing there at the door with his bag, and he said, I'll come back on Friday and talk to y'all. He said, when things calm down. And that made me even madder because it was like, how are things supposed to calm down? In 3 days, their dad's leaving. And he had his hand on the door, and I said, if you walk out that door, you're walking out on us. And he said, I'm not walking out on my children. He said, I love my children. He said, who I'm walking out on is you. And I said, so you're saying you choose her over us? And he said, I'm not saying that I'm choosing her over my children. And he left. When he left, that was the rock of our family. He was the man of our family, and he left. And my children were hurting so bad. I didn't know what to do. The kids were crying. We finally got them calmed down a little bit. I go back in my bedroom so that I could just break down. I come back here. I just put my face in the pillow and just wept to the Lord. And like, I don't know what I'm going to do. What am I going to do? Just crying out to him. God hears our cry. while I was crying to the Lord, I didn't know what to say to him. I didn't know. I just was asking him, just please help me to handle this. And a song came to mind. So I want to try to sing it and try. When the storms of life are raging, stand by me. When the storms of life are raging, stand by me. When the world is tossing me like a ship upon the sea, thou who rulest wind and water, stand by me. And I could all of a sudden already start feeling God comforting me. Not that the pain was going to be gone and gone for a long, long time or if ever, but I knew God was going to help me. So that night when we went to go to bed, I didn't know how I was going to get the children calmed down, even just to go to sleep. So me and my 3 teenage kids get in one bed, and I started reading the Bible and started praying. I prayed out loud first, started reading the Bible, and I started reading in Psalms. One of the things and reasons why I read in Psalms is because I knew David had been through a lot of heartbreak. He had caused a lot of heartbreak, but he cried out to the Lord, and the Lord heard his cry. And so I knew that if God was there for him, he could be there for me and my kids. And so I didn't just read a passage of scripture. I just kept reading and reading and reading the Bible until my kids, the last one, fell asleep. And then I just sat there and I just cried out to the Lord, Lord, please help me raise these children without their dad. And somebody would say, well, it wasn't without him. If they're not there constantly, there's a part missing of those children. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But God knew. And then all through the night, there were just different songs that came to mind. Like, what a friend we have in Jesus. And I knew I could sing that. But I also thought about the 2 friends that I had just lost, who were really friends. I prayed to God, I sang, and I read the Bible. If you're going through something, those are things that you can use to comfort you. Then I started thinking about me. What did I do to cause this? And people say, you didn't do anything to cause it. And I don't think that's true, because a marriage is 2 people. It takes 2 people. And even though they had decided to do that, I needed to look at myself and look at things that maybe I'd done to cause this. Now, one of the reasons why I'm doing this video is because I want my children and my grandchildren to learn from me. You have to constantly work on your marriage. You have to constantly pray for it. And this is what one of the things I was guilty for. I would, God help my marriage, and that was it in my prayer, But you have to sincerely pray for your marriage all the time. So I'm telling my kids, pray for your marriage. I pray for your marriage. That day changed me as a person. But I want God to get the glory and the victory for the bad thing that happened in my life, because it did draw me closer to the Lord. I got a closer relationship with Him. I want my kids to have a closer walk with God so it can spare them of heartache and sorrow. I want to be a witness to other people. I want them to see Jesus in me. Now, this story has so many different pages in it, and I'm not going to be able to do those today or tell about anything else that happened, just but that one day that changed me. One of the reasons it changed me is because they had lied. They had tricked me. But I realized it was sin in their life. I never questioned God. I never questioned him because I knew it wasn't him. I knew it was my spouse, my friend, and the devil that had tricked me. And I never questioned God. There was a sermon a couple of weeks after they had left that talked about how the devil uses your own fleshly desires and to tempt you. And I knew it at that point in time. I could see how the devil used like our relationship as friends, us being around them all the time. So, you know, one of the things I want to say to my children and my grandchildren is be careful who you have as friends and how close you get to your friends, because the devil can use that also. I'm not saying don't have friends, but I'm saying be careful, because the devil can use those types of things to put a wedge in between you and your spouse. One of the things I did is I got some verses and I called them my victory verses. I put a VV next to them in my Bible, and I would send these verses out to my friends and my brothers and sisters and stuff. And I was just like claiming those, and I wanted other people to know that I was claiming the scripture for me to be able to get victory over this sorrowful thing. And some of the verses was like in Proverbs chapter 3, it talks about trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Another thing is I battled is, of course, bad thoughts, and y'all can see why I would have bad thoughts. And so there was a verse in Philippians chapter 4, I think, that talks about, you know, the things that you think about. You need to think about pure things, honest things, just things, lovely things, all good things. And it says at the very bottom of the verse, it says think on these things. So when I would start having a bad thought or something, I would say think on these things, and I would think about all those good things. God blessed me with such good things, and the three good things that he blessed me with that I'm always thankful for is my children. God knew that I would need something in my life to be a driving force to make me a better person. And those kids have made me a better person. They still do to this day. So that one day, let me give God the glory over that, because he has been there for me. He's been such a comfort to me. And I want you guys to learn from this, that you can take anything bad and you can make it a good. Remember also that God bore all of our sins on Calvary. Not just one divorce, not just one, but everything bad. He bore that on Calvary. And I think about my pain, and then I think about why he had such anguish. It's because he bore all those sins. So today, I'm giving God the glory for being there for me, for loving my kids, for providing for us, for seeing us through. Today, I want you to claim him in prayer, claim him in song, claim him in reading your scriptures. And as you do, I want you to point to him. Have a good day, and I'll see you next week.